Round 7 of my tournament was insane. I just got off of a Catalan from last tournament, and so I wanted to play something different in this tournament against the Catalan. I won my first Catalan game last tournament, and this tournament I wanted to do the same. I wanted to win again with the Catalan. I'm playing a 2100 from Germany, 2166, bishop g2. So the idea of this early pawn takes, and I find it very strong against the Catalan, I might repeat this in the future, is that now I go b5 and I consolidate this pawn up against what is a very rigorous bishop here on this diagonal. That being said, castles, now I want to develop my minor pieces on this side of the board to castle short. a4 is completely thematic to try to open up, crack open like an oyster this diagonal and try to win my rook. So I go with bishop e7 trying to intercept this. Now if you go like knight e5, this is completely fine. I have this move queen c8 to defend everything so that after takes, bishop takes, I'm completely fine and the pawn up now. But my opponent didn't play this and surprised me with b3, which is not theory at all. This happens in some note boom lines, but this is a Catalan obviously. White is again stemming, spiking at my structure here, trying to take on c4, destroying my structure, weakening my pawns to try to win them. For example, if I do whatever here, takes, and now these are double isolated pawns, the queen goes to c2 and tries to take on c4. So here I played takes, I just get rid of that pawn, and I was expecting queen takes, and then I was going to play b4 and solidify this with a5, but my opponent didn't worry about taking this pawn at all. I guess it's fine, you can take in whatever. So knight d2 was played to try to take this next move. But only this I found weird after I saw that, okay, I can play knight bd7, just taking out this very nice knight e5 move first. And then after takes, now I can play a5. a5 to play b4, I'm still up a pawn at this point in the game. If I can solidify my pawn and cement it on b4 and have an actual protected passed pawn on b4, Black gains already a slight edge, even an advantage, but now it's completely equal for now. But after this next move by my opponent, it takes a turn for the worse. Bishop d2. Bishop d2, I don't know what it does, but certainly not a good move. At the time I didn't think so, right now I don't think so because it allows b4. Cementing this pawn, playing against this bishop, I'm up a pawn and this pawn is an absolute menace. What would really be over now is if I got c5 in. If I get to play c5, even if you let me one move, oh, just one move, I am a full pawn up, no discussion. My opponent goes rook c1, effectively stopping this c5 move, and now I go bishop e7 and finish my kingside development. We currently see 4 pieces dominating this c5 square, and 2 drilling the entire file. So my opponent plays knight d1 and I'm completely shocked. At this point in the game, I take like another huge turn. I think this was a 4-minute turn by my opponent. Here, my opponent is going like this and planning just complete domination. So far, my opponent has control over c5. But what really brings it all together is if he owns the property c5 by placing a piece, stamping that sheet of paper. And that is done with bringing a second knight in and cementing it on c5. Basically, I came to the conclusion that I'll never be able to push c5 in time before this knight gets to c5. And something occurred to me when looking specifically at this move, because you can't really look at this move and be like, this is a fantastic move. It's a knight backwards move without being questioned. Like, I didn't force the knight back, the knight went back on its own. It de-developed itself from its developed square on f3. Something must be wrong. And I find this idea, it's completely out of the box, it's completely counterintuitive, but it's based on the observation that this rook is kind of trapped here from this knight move, and this pawn is not undefended. So I go bishop a6, doing the last move you would expect from somebody trying to hold their pawn up. But I'm targeting this pawn, another weakness on the board, and threatening to trap the rook in doing so. After knight d3 covering this square, now I can defend my pawn. But by the way, there's this very nice variation I have to show. On bishop takes, okay, the engine says rook c8 with a clear advantage, but I thought bishop e2, bishop takes, and now bishop takes f1. And after the king takes back, and I take this, I'm up a pawn, this is my pawn up, this is an isolated pawn, I might be 2 pawns up soon, I'm threatening queen h1, la vie est belle. You can also go bishop f3, and then I go back here, let's say bishop h3, and this is equal still, but I largely prefer the white pieces upon seeing this super nice entrenched pawn in the white position. That being said, nothing of this happened. Knight d3 to cement the knight. Now I go rook c8 to now defend the pawn, and it's unlikely that you take because of knight b8, and this is just winning a piece. So my opponent played knight bishop g5. I did not expect this. I thought I was gonna say even knight c5 here, but bishop g5, I'm just trying to push c5, and so that's what I do. I play the third best move, bishop takes d3. I don't know why it says inaccurate. Queen takes, and now queen b6. We're going to push c5. Now the tables have turned. I have 4 pieces for this escalating pawn move, and I've taken out 1 and the knight here 2 pieces from the c5 square. So after white wants to double these rooks, I go immediately c5 and finally play my pawn. Now this is a mistake because h3 and knight d5 are better moves. Knight d5 is a fine move to go knight c3, but at this point in the game, I was already down on time on a 6-minute turn, and I play c5. My opponent doubles the rooks on this pawn, and now I go with rook d8. This is the idea. Once again, a follow-up idea. You would think my rook would keep defense of this pawn, especially with the rivaling pressure of my opponent having 4 pieces stuck on this pawn like glue. I get out of the defense of this pawn, more so out of the defense, out of the pin of this pawn. This pawn on c5 is also pinned. I can't take this because of rook takes c8. So after rook d8 here, I'm preparing things on the pin on this pawn on d4. Knight e5 is coming in. Pawn takes d4 is coming in because rook can't take on c8. So now my opponent plays bishop takes. I was okay with this. I have to take with the pawn. If I take with the bishop, I'm not defending this. And if I take with the knight, I'm not defending this as well. So knight takes c5, and this would be better for white. So I take with the pawn. I'm pretty happy, but okay, my king does take on a little bit of weakness. My opponent goes queen f3 to try to, you know, play with some stuff here around my king. So I have to take now. I'm very happy about this. For the time being, I'm up 2 pawns. 2 pawns after 21 moves. One of them is a protected passed pawn. If I get into an endgame now, black is largely winning. My opponent plays rook c6. You might see the eval bar on the left of your screen and wonder, why is it still 0-0 if you're up 2 pawns, Zach? Well, white has sensational activity here. Every white piece is pretty much perfectly placed. Also, I have my king that's a weakness. And my pieces are quite feeble in and of themselves. Low activity, low placement, etc. So my queen moves to b8. I want to reorient my queen to e5 one day. So check, king h8. And this is the burden of playing rook c6, is that now I have this gaping threat, knight e5, to fork these 2 pieces. So my opponent gets the queen out of the way, but then I come up with rook fe8, which is a mistake, but I liked it at the time for practical reasons. I'm defending my bishop and now preparing for f5 to kick the queen. And now my opponent makes a mistake. Rook c4. The easy move is like rook c7, you continue pressure, and if I ever move my knight, like black has tactics like this, and then queen takes f6, and then, yeah, this rook falls. So, and plus my opponent told me he saw this after the game. So here I played f5, attacking the queen, and now my heart skips a beat. My opponent plays queen takes d4. I completely missed this takes. I won't lie to you, I completely missed it. And I have 4 minutes on the clock. By the way, my opponent has had 1 minute on the clock for the past 2 moves and is struggling on time. Mind you, we have 14 moves left until extra time is added on our clocks. 14 moves with my opponent having 1 minute and myself having 4 minutes. So okay, the queen takes and it's check. And now I have to move. I'm panicking, but I really see like 2 moves here. King g8, is king g8 okay? And bishop f6, is bishop f6 okay? Basically, I scan both of my moves and I play bishop f6 in a hurry. My opponent plays queen e3, and then we just move on in the game. Despite my king being in check, oh how poetic, I have a winning move in this position. So try to solve it, try to pause the video, try to like the video as well while pausing it, while you're on your mouse. I go knight e5, attacking the queen, This is the winning solution and attacking the rook. But it's not that obvious. In the game, I missed this completely. Don't get me wrong, completely missed this. The queen can go to a1, and it doesn't seem like black is winning. Only if you have the eval bar or you have the engine do you know for sure that black is winning, unless you calculated like a maniac. So I can't take this rook because the queen is pinning my knight here. But now we play bishop f6, and I'm threatening not only this rook, which is not that good because queen takes f6, but I'm threatening more so this discovered check, winning the queen. And now white has to get creative. There are two defensive moves that require two different solutions by black to win this game. King f1 getting out of the check here, and here I have the simple move king g7 defending my bishop, attacking this rook, and now I'm preparing other discoveries on this queen because my bishop is defended. So it's like a double threat essentially. I'm threatening this, and now this is over. Rook d4 is the best move, and probably knight d7, right? Just pinning this rook to the queen and winning the exchange. Now the second move, rook d4, requires a little bit of finesse. Here, the best move is to trade, and now black has to find an insane resource. I don't know if I would have found it with 1 minute, 2 minutes on the clock, but here black has to find knight d3. It's kind of crazy once I say it. Here you're attacking the rook, and you're reinvigorating this pin into the position. After pawn takes, queen b6, and white finds themselves absolutely lost positionally. White cannot defend this knight here, and once you do a preparatory move, let's say this, bishop takes, threatening these two moves, yeah, queen e2 defending, and now black is just winning because of our pawn up that we've had. We have a long-term advantage here, and finally that long-term advantage is cashing in. And so I missed all of this. Anyways, I played bishop f6, and I still have a small edge here. I am up a full pawn that's protected here. So I go with knight e5, jumping into the game and attacking this rook. Again, white has some better moves than what was played, so rook c5 is a fine move. Attacking this weakness, this is what I thought my opponent would play, but he didn't. Evidently he played rook c7, and this, I looked at this too. I was so excited when my opponent played it because I have this very nice resource, rook d1. I am decoying the rook off the defense of this rook on c7. So after rook takes, queen takes, and the annoying rook on the 7th rank is no more. Rook c1 back to attack my queen, and now I take the file that this rook was taking up. We kind of just like traded files, if you will. h3 is what my opponent played. Again, my opponent has a minute, not only for the past 5 moves, but for the next 9 moves. I am playing as if I have a minute on the clock. I don't know how I still have 4 minutes. I've been playing like in 30 seconds. This is crazy. But I can tell you for a fact, I played this move instantly. Yeah, I gained time on my clock. That means that I took like 15 seconds for this move. So queen d7, h3, and now I go rook c8, trying to battle for the file. The best move here is rook d8, cementing this file even more. And the idea is that I just open up my knight and play bishop c3 and then just go for positional dominance. But I want to trade off these rooks. My bad rook wants to trade off against this good rook, very rational. So rook takes, queen takes, and now knight takes a5. It is equal now, but I'm the first one to play, so I go queen c2. I'm getting my pawn to promotion, rushing through. Knight b3 defends this pawn that's passed, and now I go with check, king down, and now I go with queen a2. Attacking this pawn. And I was having in my mind that if a5, I have knight c4 and I'm completely winning because I win this pawn, which in fact, I would have played almost instantly having like a minute on the clock, but this is losing because white has queen c5, threatening mate and my knight. So thank God this didn't happen because low-key this would have been losing. My opponent played knight c5, and now I go king g7. A fantastic move. This is prophylactic, highly prophylactic. Prophylaxis just means you're looking into your opponent's threats, and in this case, I was very scared of moves like queen h6, so I go king g7. And now this was a funny part of the game. We just repeat moves funnily to take up moves so that we can finally reach the 40th move. Now I can accept a draw against somebody who has 140 points above my elo, but I believe so much in this position, which still has a small edge, that I reject the draw of 3 move repetition, and I go knight c4. queen f4, I go queen c3. Now this pawn looks like it's really lurking into these next squares. And after queen c7, I have to take a very long think, because this is very dangerous. Here my opponent is threatening knight takes e6. Now, I have a few choices. Either I get out of this pin, which gets really, really dangerous. I was thinking of bishop here. My opponent after the game told me about, I think, e4. And if takes, knight takes. No, if takes, bishop takes, and it's completely over. So he was really emphasizing this idea, but this actually loses, knight e5, and I go like knight f3. But after king g6, nothing, e4 didn't scare me, bishop c6 scared me a ton. Bishop c6 going with f7, and I was calculating this line, and unfortunately it doesn't come in time, I just lose. Little did I know, on bishop c6, knight e5, bishop e8, and this is completely well defended. Now b3, f4 attacking my knight, the defender of the f7 pawn, king h8, the only move, and it wins. King h6 is winning. The reason is, after takes, bishop takes e5, threatens this and checkmate in 2 moves. And now white doesn't have a queen takes f7 check to play. So that's the idea of the entire combination. All to say, I saw all of that, I was very scared, and I played queen e5. And this gets us into an equal endgame in which I have a farther pawn up, but my advantage is now minimalized. Knight b3, bishop c7. I'm trying to trade knights. Yes, this goes into an opposite color bishop endgame, which is known for being drawn, but it's the best I have. Unless I want this a pawn to be very, very influential and quite dangerous, because my pawn is not even counterplay at this point. So e3, I trade off the knights, and my small left advantage here is that my king is getting here first. And you can't really play king e2 because b2, and now you can't defend this b1 square. So my opponent goes bishop c4, a move I had not seen. I was very confident at this point in the game that I can get something dangerous. It's probably drawn, but white has to play very, very nicely. Bishop c4 is the best move. My opponent played very precisely. I go b2, and now bishop d3. My king is trying to circle in, king e2. Now the king can pass because the bishop takes up b1. And upon my king getting to a3, now I'm trying to kind of grasp at these queenside pawns that are on dark squares and hard to defend by a light square bishop. g4, I take, and then I take on f2. I win back a pawn, you might say, but then I lose back h7. And now these pawns are kind of threatened, so I go f6, e5. And this boils down to a draw. I offered my opponent a draw after 64 moves, and he accepted the draw. Overall, it's a second non-loss against the Catalan in 2 tournaments. For that, I see progress from my perspective, so I'm very grateful. And I dominated. Like, I didn't have one point where I was extremely worse, which is something really interesting and that I take close to my heart. So I'm now undefeated 4 games in this tournament. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please feel free to like this video, subscribe if you want more of these, and round number 8 should come to you tomorrow. Again, a crazy game. See you soon.